Hello, my name is Mike Driscoll, and today I'm going to talk to you about automating Excel with Python. I'm going to teach you how to read a spreadsheet, write a spreadsheet, and style spreadsheet cells. You can do much more than this with the package I'm going to talk to you about, but we just don't have the time to cover everything. The package I'm going to use is called OpenPyExcel, also known as OpenPixel. The reason that I like OpenPixel is that it's free and open source. It works even without Excel installed, and it can read and write Excel spreadsheets. Some of the other packages out there, such as XLSX Writer, can only write. Some can only read, like XLRD, and some require Excel to be installed, like Excel Wings. So I find this one is a nice middle ground that does everything that I want it to do without having any extra strings attached. To install OpenPixel, you can just do python 3-m pip install OpenPixel. Let's talk about reading Excel spreadsheets first. I'm going to show you a couple of different ways to do it because reading and writing Excel spreadsheets tends to be kind of complicated. So the first step is to import load workbook from OpenPixel. I'm going to create a function, and it's going to accept a path to my Excel document, and we will load it up using load workbook. The workbook object can then be used to grab out the sheet names within your workbook. So let's take a look at what those worksheets even mean. If I go over to the actual worksheet, or the workbook in this case, we'll open up Excel and we'll just take a quick look at what it looks like. So here we go. Let's just make this look nice. And you can see that the sheets, I have two sheets of data. Sales was the one that it loaded up on, and that is known as the active worksheet. So when I say workbook.active, it's going to grab the one that is active. And when I say sheet names, it will print out sales and sheet 1-books. And it'll go from left to right. So this is going to be a list of names from left to right. And then we'll print out the sheet object and the title of the worksheet. Let's run this code and see what we get. So you can see that it's printing out sheet 1 books, sales, and matches up. When we print out the actual sheet, it's also sales because that's the active one when we loaded it up. And then the title of the worksheet is sales again. So the sheet title is the same thing as a sheet name. All right, let's read specific cells from this workbook. To read a specific cell, you can use the same kind of cell naming as you would use in Excel, so A2 and A3. So to grab that, you grab the active sheet, and then you say sheet, and use kind of a dictionary access with A2, A3, or whatever cell you want to access, .value, and it'll print it out. Or you can create a cell object by saying cell equals sheet, and then give it the value that you want to extract, and then just use cell.value. If you print this out, you can see that it matches up with A2 being Python 101, A3 being WX Python recipes, and the cell value of B3 being 5. Let's read a range of cells. To read a range of cells, you have a couple of different options. This code's a little bit complicated, so I'll run through it really quick. So here we pass in our path, the sheet name that we want to read from, and the range of cells that we want to read. I go ahead and check to see if the sheet name is in the names within the workbook, and if not, it'll just quit. If it is in there, it continues, and we pull it out. And then for each column in the sheet, in the range, and each cell in that column, we go ahead and print out that column letter and row number and its value. To keep things simple, I'm going to skip merge cells because they're a little more complicated to read from. If you run this code, you can see that it prints out A1, A2, A2. It basically prints out a range from A1 to B6, which you can kind of see here. A1 to B6 is right here. So it's going to print out this amount of data. And you can see A6 and B6 are empty, so there are none here. It's kind of funny that it's got, oh, I might be on the wrong page. Anyway, I'm not sure where it's getting that Mike Driscoll from. But anyway, that's basically how it works. Maybe I have the wrong thing loaded up. Let's read all the data. And to read all the data, you can just iterate over the whole thing. So for sheet name and sheet names, pull out the sheet, and then for value, then you can iterate over the row. So it has iter rows. It also has an iter columns version, and you can pull out all the data using that particular method, and it'll just print out the values. If I run this code, it's going to print it out as tuples for each row. So, books, title, Python 101. Let's see, I think it's printing this one. Yeah, there we go. So books, you can see it's printing out this merge cell, and everything else is none in it. And then it does title, etc. And then it prints out all these other none values. So you got a bunch of extra nones, and then it says sheet title.sales, so it's going to the next sheet that has data in it and printing those out as well. And that one looks to be a little bit smarter because it's not printing out all those none cells, which is nice. All right, let's learn about creating Excel spreadsheets. To create an Excel spreadsheet, you can just import the workbook class, create an instance of that class, and then save it. This will create an empty Excel spreadsheet. But an empty Excel spreadsheet is boring, so let's add a sheet to it. In this case, we again create the workbook object, print out the worksheet names, and then we create a sheet. And then we print out the sheet names again, insert our worksheet, and this just kind of demonstrates what happens when you mess with the worksheets. So the first time you create it, it gives it a sheet name just called sheet. We add a new one, sheet 1, and then we insert one with a specific index, and we call it second sheet. So that inserts the second sheet before sheet 1, and you can see what happens there, and then you can just save it. And of course, none of these sheets have any data in it. Let's go on to adding data because, empty worksheets are kind of useless. So here we create a workbook object, grab the active worksheet, and then to actually add values, you can just set A1, A2, A3 to whatever values you want, strings, floats, etc., and then save it, and you'll end up with your document. Nice and easy. To delete data, I'm just going to show you a quick and dirty thing. We're going to create some data here, and then we're going to delete a column starting at IDX1. That means we're going to delete column A. So anything in A1, A2, A3, and A4 will be deleted. Then we'll delete 2 rows starting on the second row. So IDX2 and then 2 rows. And when you do this, you'll see that most of the data gets deleted from the spreadsheet. All right, so let's talk about cell styling, because that's important. You can make really pretty spreadsheets using OpenPixel. So we have a value and a style. What this does is it sets the style of the text in the cell. So if you run this code and open up my built-in style document, you can see that all the text is different sizes. You have this size and that size, and they don't exactly match up with what the code says that it should, but it works pretty well. All right, let's create a named style. A named style comes from openpixel.styles. You can import font, border, side, name style, and lots of other things. So here we set up a font, set it to bold, set up the side color, add the border, and set it all to the thick sides. And then we give it a named style, and then we set it. When you run this code, you end up with a named style document. And you can see that it now has a nice red cell. Super cool. All right, fonts. To do stuff with fonts, it's very similar. We just import the font, and then you can set it to whatever fonts are installed in your computer, set the size and the color, and then just save it. This works quite well, and you end up with some pretty nice different fonts and colors. All right. Anyway, today I taught you about OpenPixel, how to read and write Excel spreadsheets, and how to style spreadsheet cells. You can do much more with OpenPixel, so definitely check it out and learn how to create spreadsheets and so much more. Thank you so much for watching.